pillar in the larger context of what is happening in the world. And I think what was also impressive was how many references he ticked off when he was speaking, clearly making an effort to connect to an audience with the people here. Which where some of that is not something that you usually see with Mr. Trump. You have seen his other speeches, which are quite technical, which are quite straightforward, official. But here he was actually making an effort to connect with the larger Indian audience that was present in the stadium, and also I think is speaking to the larger Indians, outside the stadium, and making a case that America and Mr. Trump remain very, very important friends of India. So clearly, I think there is an understanding there about India's role there. And I think that perhaps that articulation is important, because that gives you a sense of where Mr. Trump is coming from and how he views the role of India and how he views Indo-US relationship, both personally and at a more impersonal level, at a national level, at a bilateral level, which I think you got that from the speech. So clearly, whatever happens tomorrow, he has set the tone for the visit by being very warm and by being very outward in his approach towards India and Indians. And I think making a case that Indo-US relationship is driven not simply from top down but also from bottom up, that people-to-people ties, soft power, both remain very, very important constituents in the shaping of this relationship.
All right, let's take this thought forward, Mr. Pinaki, when the President time and again talked of how true friend is what he sees in India and how the two countries have come together. We've talked of how he's tried to make a connect during his address at Motera Stadium, and time and again Prime Minister has also talked of how important US is for India. When these two leaders sit for business tomorrow, when these two leaders, the camaraderie, the bonhomie, how does that come across to the other countries? What do other countries look at when these two US and India sit for talks tomorrow?
Well, firstly, this public event that we have witnessed today, and the kind of speech President Trump made, and the fact that the two leaders get along so well, and there's a huge amount of bonhomie, I think sends a signal across the world in many ways. That one signal is that India and the USA under these two leaders are trying to get closer to each other. Even closer, I would say, even closer. So that is one signal that goes out. And that signal will be, I think, most deeply absorbed by two of our neighbors, China and Pakistan. But that doesn't mean that this automatically translates into, deliverables, as we say. That it does not mean that when they sit down and talk tomorrow, it does not mean that Trump will give concessions or Prime Minister Modi will give away concessions that goes against their natural sort of, natural propensity to protect their individual national interest. So I think these are signals that yes, we want to do business. Yes, we are friends, and yes, we have a lot of things in common, and we will work together to sort of bring to fruition many of the deals that are on the table. This is the kind of messaging that is happening from this kind of an event.
All right, Harsh, if I may bring you in. Now, you've talked of how, the visit could be perceived by China. The President also made a veiled mention of China during his address. So, we know how US is wary of an expansionist, of an aggressive China in the Indo-Pacific. So, can this be said that we, like India, could present, say, a trump card to Donald Trump against China in the region?
Well, I think, India, the fact that India as a democracy exists, and not only exists, but also is now a very, very important economic, political and diplomatic actor on the global stage, is in itself, a very important message to China and to Chinese model, as we were earlier talking about. And that you can have democracy and high rates of growth and economic power at the same time. So clearly something that China has been articulating for long, that their model is the best model available, and that, you look at democracies, then they don't work, and if you look at a democracy like India, there are so many problems there. I think India stands as a strong rebuke to that sentiment. And there is a sense perhaps that America and India potentially together can work and create a stable balance of power in a region where China's rise has created so much turbulence, and China's challenge to the global order becomes that much more acute. So as we work towards a situation where like-minded countries are working together, India and China, India and America both are working, have a similar convergence, have a similar outlook on how the Indo-Pacific region needs to evolve and what needs to be done to maintain that stability. And that brings, I think, the two countries automatically together. Unlike in some other cases where there is an attempt to create artificial relationships, this is a relationship that exists sui generis in some ways. The maritime relationship, the expansive trade and economic and political relationship is a tribute to the fact that a lot has changed in the Indo-Pacific architecture, but India and the US stand as two bookends in that larger maritime space.
All right, so here we await President Trump. He has already entered the Taj Mahal complex in Agra, the city of love, and this is the second leg of his visit. Earlier we saw him address the huge crowd at Motera Stadium. Our correspondent Vishal Baristo is joining us. Vishal, we are showing colorful, beautiful visuals to our viewers where we see performances there, Yes.
Very good evening to you, Preeti. As you can see, the folk dancers, they are especially been arranged here, and they represent the bridge culture of Uttar Pradesh. Now, bridge is an area that extends from Bharatpur in Rajasthan to Mathura in UP, and also includes Agra, the place where we have Taj Mahal, one of the 7 wonders of the world. And there you see the folk dancers on both sides of the road as President Trump's carcade is moving towards the Taj Mahal. You can see the cutout of Donald Trump, and also along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You can see dancers dancing, welcoming him. Uttar Pradesh has also showcased its might of tourism. Why you should come to Uttar Pradesh, not only because of Taj Mahal, but because of the religious value. It is the land of Lord Krishna, it is the land of Lord Rama, and it is also the land of the holy rivers of Ganga and Yamuna, and that is what today Agra is trying to showcase before President Trump, who's been accompanied by his wife Melania Trump, his daughter Ivanka, and his son-in-law. And they all 4 would be going to visit the Taj Mahal. It is going to be a historic moment. After Bill Clinton, President Trump is going to be the 3rd president of the United States to visit Taj Mahal. Last time it was President Obama, but at the very last minute he had to take his flight to Saudi Arabia, and he missed his visit to Taj Mahal. So after 1959, when Eisenhower was there, it was Bill Clinton, and now President Donald Trump. And there you see Agra all decked up, all prepared, all
Yes, we can see the
decorated.
Taj in occupying the entire frame of the screen right now, Vishal, and it's looking magnificent, bathed in that sunlight. That is, of course, of setting sun, gradually setting sun, and that's it seems like a perfect time of the day to be visiting the entire complex. The light would be perfect.
Well, absolutely, Gautam, and a very good evening to you. Yes, there you see the beautiful, beautiful Taj Mahal, the epitome of love, and Taj Mahal is celebrating its 368th anniversary, and this is the first time that this has been facelifted with the mud cap. Multani Mitti has been used to beautify Taj Mahal, to cleanse this tomb, and also to bring out its old glory. And let me tell you, the Taj Mahotsav is also on, Gautam, and we have been talking to people, and they are very much excited, not only because of the Taj Mahotsav, but because of Donald Trump, who's been here, and some of them, they've extended their stay. So it's definitely a very good opportunity for the people, for the tourists, and especially for Agra, because Agra has had a new light, I would say, because whole Agra came to life they all came up. They started cleaning their houses, their streets, and not only the municipal corporation, but also the government and also the local Agraites, I would say, who came out in large numbers to beautify their city for this historic moment. And let me tell you that today the mayor of Agra would be presenting key of maiden silver of Agra to President Donald Trump. There you see the flags, tricolor proudly flying in the air along with the flag of United States of America. And as one of the banners read, that Agra welcomes its best friend. And the oldest democracy meeting the largest democracy of the world. It's quite a scene here, and that is what I wonder what would our neighbors be thinking, because it's a huge opportunity for India to tell the world that it stands along with whom. The might of the world has come out to, has reached to Prime Minister Modi, and they have shaken hands. It was a very warm welcome today. We saw in Agra how they embraced each other. And today here in Agra, it was Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. You can see Taj Mahal, and shortly the carcage of President Donald Trump would be reaching there, and with the battery car, they would be taken to the tomb. So it's going to be a beautiful sight. And let me tell you that 5 makeup artists who are part of the POTUS, the President of the United States team, they are already also would be accompanying the president to give the final touches as far as the hairstyling is and the dress is concerned, because that momentous picture, that historic picture that they would be having there at the backdrop of the Taj Mahal is going to be there with them forever. So it's going to be a very, very special moment for the Trumps and also for his daughter and his son-in-law.
Yes, yes, indeed, Vishal. We can see the Taj in its full glory. Not only Taj, but I must say the entire city of love has been is looking indeed very pretty, very beautiful. The way we saw the billboards welcoming the president there and his family in Agra. Let us know more about what sort of excitement, reactions did you get from the people there. Of course, he will be the third president, U.S. president, visiting the city, and people there will have that sense of pride, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And there you see President Donald Trump is about to reach the Taj Mahal. He's there at the entrance of Taj Mahal. We could see picture of the Trump couple hand in hand with his Melania, wife Melania, looking very beautiful in the white dress. President Donald Trump in the black suit and a yellow tie. And as they walk slowly towards the tomb, let me tell you that the whole city was very much excited, because I've been here for the last 2 days. And people, they have been interestingly taking selfies at the cutout of President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And that was very interesting, as you see that India welcomes President Donald Trump, and it was a very strange thing to find people coming out along with their families, mother, father, child, taking selfies, taking photos along with a cutout. So it was a huge opportunity for this city of love, which has been painted in the colors of friendship. The flag of America, United States of America, along with the tricolor, they both fly together, and the streets have been painted in the colors of friendship along with the flag. And there you see President Donald Trump as he walks inside the entrance gate and is taking a walk, and as shortly he would be going there to see the Taj Mahal. He's already inside the tomb at the entrance, as you can see there, President Donald Trump in black suit and his wife giving the photographers the opportunity they've been waiting for, and he's been very kind to the photographers as he poses for them, because Donald Trump is known for his style across the world, and that is why he is taking every possible step to utilize this opportunity, because Taj Mahal is one of the wonders of the world. and an epitome
Yes, indeed,
of
one of the
love.
seven
And that is
wonders
what
of the world. Vishal, at present, our correspondent Abhishek Mahajan is also joining us from there. Abhishek, here we see President Trump and the First Lady at Taj Mahal, and indeed, Vishal told us about the excitement of the people there and also how the city has been decked up. We saw him. We saw a huge crowd welcome him at the Motera Stadium, and then we have President Trump now at the City of Love, the Taj Mahal, which is synonymous with love. So when we talk of the visit of President Trump, the packed, jam-packed 36-hour visit, I'm sure this first day is, this is the best this day could offer to President Trump in India.
They've just been at the entrance of the Taj Mahal complex proper, and there have been flashbulbs that have been going off incessantly, and very patient, very unrushed this visit to Taj.
पाँच मिनट का और गाँव में था जैसे आई गाड़ी निकली खत्म दर्शन करें कवरेज करके बंद बस अभी चल रही है तुम्हारी कवरेज है
There you are seeing US President Donald Trump and First Lady of the United States of America, Melania Trump, at the Taj Mahal complex. And they just signed the visitors' book. This is the Trump's tryst with the City of Love, with the Monument of Love, with the 17th century monument built over a period of nearly 20 years by Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his wife after her death in 1631. It's been refurbished to welcome US President Donald Trump and the First Lady. Agra got a makeover, and we also saw how the workers, masons, they worked 24/7 nearly to refurbish this monument of love. The famed 17th century mausoleum, the World Heritage Site of Agra, is now welcoming US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. This is going to be a spectacle for keeps. This is going to go down in history as US President Donald Trump is only the third US president after Dwight Eisenhower came in 1959, and then Bill Clinton came along with Chelsea Clinton in 2000 to Agra. And both of them had different experiences. We'll talk about that as well. But right now, our correspondent Abhishek Mahajan is joining us on the phone line. Abhishek, what a moment this is, a sight to behold, isn't it?
Trump, along with his family, is having a wonderful time here. And many photo sessions have been planned. And one has already been done in front of Mehra, we call it, where the entire beauty, the entire Taj Mahal can be witnessed. And they are working together, Melania Trump and Donald Trump, with the delegations to the park, and they'll have another photo session at the China bench, and they can't afford to miss that. So the wait has actually ended, and everyone was waiting for Donald Trump with bated breath, and he has finally arrived. The twist at the city, the Agra, will only be for 2 hours, but it will definitely have a strong and vital impact, a very positive effect. If I may say that, on the tourism too. We know Donald Trump has been very active on social media. He has been very vocal also. He enthralled the crowd. And US media has also been here in numbers covering the visit. So cultural programs also happened at the airport, and now the turn of the city. Folk dances have been planned. The Braj culture has been highlighted. And the city, Munmun, let me tell you, the city looks so beautiful. We have been sending the visuals continuously, and the walls have been painted so nicely, portraying the Indian culture, thematic graffitis, if I may say that. And I was talking to the school children, actually, who made it happen. They made the pictures of Lord Ganesha, Lord Hanumana, to depict the Indian culture. It's absolutely amazing, and I'm sure they'll have a memorable trip to the Agra city here.
Absolutely, Abhishek. We've seen in the past how the then US President in 1959, Dwight Eisenhower, came here. He was moved around in an open golf cart or an open car of sorts. And then we saw how Bill Clinton was there. He even said that this is perhaps a ghost city because of the security restrictions. Perhaps there was no one on the streets then. But this is going to be an altogether different experience. And the Indian government organizers also have made it a point to welcome dignitaries in a particular manner, and Taj Mahal tends to figure very prominently in the itinerary of the foreign dignitaries who visit India, isn't it?
Absolutely, you're bang on, Munmun, and everything was micro-planned, and we were here waiting. We were restricted. Media also are not allowed to go outside a particular point, and we are standing at a place 1 kilometer away from the Taj Mahal, and there is no one here. All this is generally a very crowded place, but there is no one here, and it was a threefold security basically. The innermost security was of U.S. Security agencies and U.S. Secret Services, I should say, and then the UP police, and then the paramilitary force. And the roads have also been widened, and ornate flower pots placed on the dividers to give the a different look, a different makeover of sorts. A rusty old bridge of the colonial era was being spray painted. Metallic silver grey on Friday evening we saw. Yes, and the visuals also, and the pavement encroachments, they were also removed, and electric poles installed with tricolor LED lights too. So we can say, like I said, Munmun, it will definitely have a positive impact on the tourism. A lot of people will come here. They have been coming, and a lot of people we can see in the near future they'll come here. And I was actually speaking to one of the tourists, and he had in fact extended his stay just to have a glimpse of Donald Trump, which is amazing. He had come from Denmark, and there was another tourist from Israel. He actually had played a song especially made for Donald Trump. So it's amazing, you know. I mean, not only here, and people were very excited to just have a glimpse of Donald Trump. And I'm sure, as we can see in the pictures, Donald Trump, along with his wife Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, they're having a wonderful time here. And like you mentioned, Munmun, in 1959, Eisenhower, the U.S. president, had come here. After that, Bill Clinton had come in the year 2000. Barack Obama had to come, but he couldn't come because of some reasons. And now it's U.S. president. So it's amazing scenes we are witnessing here, and he is having a wonderful time here.
Absolutely, Abhishek. On and off, we are showing our viewers visuals of the front side of the Taj Mahal, where the Trumps will be going next. Do we expect them to sit on the bench like we've seen in the past several foreign dignitaries do for a famous photo opportunity that will be referred for all times to come?
Absolutely, Munmun. 4-5 spots have been planned actually, and they'll definitely go to the iconic bench that we call it, the Dinah bench. And it's amazing, you know, and the guide who has been telling them the history of the iconic Taj Mahal, the monument of love, he has also, let me tell you, he has also been chosen. A lot of interviews, a lot of candidates for their interviews were conducted, and he has been the chosen one. So, like I was mentioning, that everything has been micro-planned. The security was beefed up in the morning itself. Last minute preparations were going on, and no one is here. I mean, like I mentioned, it is very crowded generally here. Taj Mahal, like Vishal mentioned, it has also been going on, and it's not taking place today.
And Abhishek, that famous moment is already here. This is going to be captured for posterity. The two sides, the two leaders, in fact, standing in front of the Taj Mahal, and perhaps they'll be seated on the bench soon. And you said the Dinah bench is how it is popularly known as. So this is a moment for the shutterbugs, isn't it?
Absolutely, Munmun. Taj Mahal is actually so special because of its enormous beauty, we all know, and the UNESCO World Heritage Site is also one of the 7 wonders of the world because of its immense beauty. And the symbol of love was made by Emperor Shah Jahan in the loving memory of his wife and the most loved queen, Begum Mumtaz Mahal. And India's most famous architectural wonder, basically in a land where magnificent temples and edifices abound to remind visitors about the rich civilization of a country that is slowly but surely lifting itself into an industrialized society. And like you mentioned, very soon I think we'll have a photo session of Donald Trump and Melania Trump on that iconic Dinah bench. And we are also told that his daughter Ivanka Trump, along with her husband Jared Kushner, they'll also have a photo session on the same iconic bench. And then they will go inside. They'll spend around half an hour there. The guide will tell them about the graves of Mumtaz and Shah Jahan. And like Vishal also mentioned, the graves have been, it has given a clay pack treatment. The scrubbing has been done, and that has been done after 368 years, if I'm not wrong. This amazing scenes here, Munmun, and I don't know, I mean, we are a little unlucky that we are not able to enter the Taj Mahal inside. But it's a moment to behold. It's a fantastic moment, and he'll cherish it for his lifetime.
Indeed. Abhishek, do stay on if you will. I'm now joined by another of my colleagues, Vishal Barrister, also in Agra as we speak. These are live visuals coming to you from Taj Mahal, where we've just seen President Trump and First Lady Melania pose for the photographers outside the Monument of Love in the city of Agra. Vishal, if I can come to you now, walk us through the moment that we saw just a couple of minutes ago of President Trump and First Lady Melania pose in front of the Taj Mahal, and this is high on symbolism, isn't it?
Well, definitely it's high on symbolism. It's a city of love, and as one of the posters read that we welcome the best friend of India in the city of love. Now that explains everything. There you see on your screen the beautiful picture of the Taj Mahal, which is celebrating its 368th anniversary, and it has been specially facelifted with the Multani Mitti, the mud cap treatment that has been given to the Taj Mahal. That has given a special glitter to the marbles of Taj Mahal. And there you see President Trump going for that photo op, and he is waving his hands. There you see Ivanka Trump along with her husband. So it's quite a family get-together. And there you see Melania along with President Donald Trump. Love is in the air, friendship is in the air, and that is what India has been trying to showcase. And as far as UP is concerned, a very proud moment for the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, because they are also trying to showcase their tourism might to the world along with the Trumps, the mighty Trumps of the United States of America. There you see in the two windows on the right side, you have President Donald Trump, black coat, yellow tie, along with his wife in white dress. Now they are slowly moving towards the tomb and hand in hand. What a moment. It's a historic moment and definitely a very romantic moment because Taj Mahal is the epitome of love, and also Taj Mahotsav is going on. So it's going to be a special occasion for the Trumps. And yes, a very proud moment for India.
Absolutely. And there we are seeing Ivanka Trump as well as Jared Kushner there, also posing for photographs. It's their moment as well, as they are at the Mausoleum of Love. We earlier saw Donald Trump as well as Melania Trump posing for photographs in front of what is called the Dana Bench. And the other couple is there as well, the Trump family. They're at the Taj Mahal, which is a World Heritage Site. It is India's pride, and it is one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world. It is one of the 7 wonders of the world. A lot of effort has gone into refurbishing the Taj Mahal for this visit. The city, in fact, has got a makeover, like a correspondent Abhishek Mahajan was telling us. There were flower pots on dividers of roads. These roads have been widened. Besides that, a lot of work has been done by masons, etc., to refurbish this entire monument. The fountains have, in a way, come alive after the refurbishing work. All of this being done for a special moment when Donald Trump and wife and First Lady of the United States of America, Melania Trump, were to land here. And now you are seeing these 2 couples strolling in the lawns of the Taj Mahal complex. It is, of course, a sight to behold. Very often we see foreign dignitaries coming here to spend some time together. We've seen in the past photographs of Princess Diana here. We've seen Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton here as well. We've seen Dwight Eisenhower, who was then accompanied by the then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, here. They've traveled in different ways. Eisenhower moved in an open car, so to say, and then we saw Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton moving around, and now we are seeing them strolling. The Trumps, so to say, Donald Trump, Melania Trump on the one hand, and on the other, you can see on the right hand of your screens, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner soaking in the glory of the Taj Mahal. A perfect time for the couples to be there because it's sunset, and the beauty of Taj Mahal becomes many times over. It becomes multiple in a sense. This famed mausoleum was built by Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his wife, Mumtaz Mahal, who died in 1631. So this is part of the hospitality that India is extending to the Trumps. There was this huge, grand, mega India roadshow when he had travelled from the Ahmedabad airport to Sabarmati Ashram, and then from Sabarmati Ashram to the Motera Stadium. And we've seen hundreds of students line up along the roads of Agra to welcome the Trumps. And we've seen how Donald Trump has been thanking Prime Minister Narendra Modi, all Indians, for this unprecedented hospitality that has been extended to him. The grandeur of the kind of reception that Donald Trump has got in India is there for everyone to see. And President Donald Trump is completely overwhelmed, as he says, with the warm hospitality that has been extended to him, with the personal warmth that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has shown to him. This is his first ever visit to India as the US President, and India has made it sure that this will be a memorable one, that this will be captured for posterity, this will be remembered for all times to come. And now Donald Trump as well as Melania Trump closer to the Mausoleum of Love, having posed for photographs some meters away near the Diana Bench, as it is called. Now they are closer to this marble marvel, which is the Taj Mahal, which is one of the wonders of the world, which went in for some speed cleaning ahead of the family frame, which was much anticipated. and look at the bluish waters where the fountains come in full bloom. In fact, photographers and journalists have all lined up there to capture this moment, and they are going to remember this moment in their journalistic lives as well, because this is one of the high points. And there you are seeing another couple, Ivanka Trump as well as Jared Kushner, posing, a photo opportunity, a moment for the shutterbugs to capture for life, standing ahead of the marble marvel, ahead of the light bluish water at the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal figures high in the itinerary of visiting dignitaries for obvious reasons, because of its beauty, which is unparalleled in a manner. And that moment is only building up with time. The couple may well enter the World Monument as well. There were reports earlier that the replicas of the graves of Shah Jahan as well as Mumtaz Mahal have been given a facial of sorts, which has happened for the first time in nearly 300 to 400 years. And the entire monument has been spruced up. The entire city has been spruced up for this moment that is going to go down in history, that is going to be remembered for all times to come.
Indeed, what we are witnessing now as we speak is a historic moment in India-US ties and also in the lives of the Trumps, President Trump, First Lady Melania, and President Trump's daughter Ivanka, whom we see on our screens right now, along with her husband and advisor to the President of the United States, Jared Kushner. It's a family outing for the Trumps, the President and the First Lady, along with Ivanka and Jared Kushner. Remember, today is day one of President Trump's visit to India. In fact, Munmun, this day has been high on symbolism from the word get-go. We saw Prime Minister Modi himself greeting and receiving President Trump at the Ahmedabad airport this morning and giving the President a warm hug. And then we saw the first engagement for the Trumps at the Sabarmati Ashram, again high on symbolism. Addressed the Namaste Trump event at the Motera Stadium, which again is high on symbolism for the fact that Motera Stadium is the world's largest cricket stadium that can house more than 125,000 people at a given point of time. So clearly the stadium was packed to capacity for the much anticipated event of the day, the Namaste Trump event by President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. And now we are seeing the Trumps at the Taj Mahal in Agra, the second city on their day one of the visit. From Ahmedabad, they traveled to Agra this afternoon, and here we are at the Taj Mahal, the wonder of the world, in Agra, for the Trumps to soak in the moment, so to speak, of President Trump and the First Lady, along with Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner. So it's been a historic, a unique visit by any stretch of imagination, and Prime Minister Modi himself has said that this is a historic visit, a momentous occasion in India-US bilateral ties. Tomorrow, viewers, will be the business end of the visit, where President Trump will be accorded a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi, followed by delegation-level talks between the two principals, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, on the margins of which some agreements are likely to be signed, including in the area of defense, and other issues as well will figure in the discussions, including but not limited to the Indo-Pacific, trade, security, defense, and people-to-people ties. So clearly a jam-packed agenda tomorrow as well for the Trumps in New Delhi. And as we watch these visuals on our screens, live from Taj Mahal, where the Trumps are spending time as we speak, I want to bring in our guests in the studio, Ambassador Bhaskar Balakrishnan and Professor Harsh Pant of the Observer Research Foundation. to walk us through their take on the big takeaways from day one of the Trump visit. If I can start with you, Ambassador Balakrishnan, the takeaways from President Trump's speech at the Motera Stadium, and what are your impressions of day one of the visit so far?
Well, I think it's been a great start to this visit. The speech at the stadium was quite impactful, and the crowd was up to the Trump expectations. But let's not forget that behind what's happening right now, the officials from both sides are meeting to hammer out the agreements which will be put before the principals tomorrow. So these people will probably work through the night in order to get everything ready for tomorrow. And hopefully they will be able to reach agreement on many of the areas which we are talking about. Defense is one. Energy is another. Where there shouldn't be any problem in stepping up the trade, both in defense and in energy. We are already buying $600 million worth of oil, and the US has emerged as a leading oil and gas exporter. So that's something which suits us. We want to diversify away from suppliers and have a diverse basket. Aerospace is another important area. The whole area of science and technology, where the US has so much to, and India have so much to gain from cooperation with each other. Higher education, where we have about Indian students spending about $6 billion in the US. It's an export of educational services, which should be included in service trade figures, but it's not. It has a huge potential. We are trying to upgrade our universities to make them world class. I think US is absolutely a right partner to help us with that. And then above all, the diaspora in the United States, the Indian diaspora, which has contributed so much to the US and also to US-India relations, and which is now playing an important role in the political scene in the US, as well as India, I might say. So there's a huge potential list of areas where US and India can work together, and I expect some of these will be hammered out and inked tomorrow. Let's look forward to that.
Professor Pant, if I can just quickly ask you to weigh in on the big takeaways for you from day one of the visit. Prime Minister Modi said that this is no longer just another relationship. He says it is a far greater and closer relationship, that between India and the US. So your thoughts on day one, how day one has shaped up so far?
I think it's been so far so good. We have had a speech by President Trump, where he was clearly making an effort to connect with an Indian audience. He ticked off all the right references. There was a sense that he really is invested in the relationship. He really wants to take the relationship forward. And I think there is a lot of forward-looking sort of a theme in the comments that he made. That despite some troubles here and there, the larger trajectory of the relationship remains very positive. And I think both sides are insistent that they want to take it a notch higher, which is clearly important, given that some of the headlines that we have had in the last few months have been relatively negative, despite the fact that the underpinnings of the relationship have remained very, very robust. So I think that what we have seen today is the fact that Indo-US relationship remains a very unique relationship, because it is being driven both top down and bottom up. You have this sense that leaders are invested in it. You have a sense that people are invested in it. So clearly, when Mr. Modi went to Houston, the Howdy Modi rally had an impact. And today, when Mr. Trump comes to Ahmedabad, he looks at this vast crowd, which may or may not know much about strategy, but I think what they know, that America is an important country. America is a country that can be trusted now, as Mr. Trump was pointing out again and again. A very important friend they have in Mr. Trump himself and in America. I think those are the messages that have gone out. Of course, he said a lot of other things about terrorism, Islamist extremism, about defense, about space, about education, which I think will remain the elements that will be sorted out tomorrow. But clearly today was a day which was relatively more warm and fuzzy. It gave you a warm and fuzzy feeling about the relationship. With all the troubles that are there, they may be sorted off tomorrow. But clearly today is a day which as this visit to Taj Mahal exemplifies, that Indo-US relationship has much more than just a strategy and brand strategy. that underlines any big strategic partnership.
Dr. Pant, are people then really at the heart of this relationship? Because this was a sentence that was put out by none other than our Prime Minister in Houston, in Texas, at the Howdy Modi event, where he spoke about how people in Bangalore, in Boston, they are all forming the heart of this relationship. And how do you see the contribution that Indian Americans have made to the U.S. economy? We saw U.S. President speaking a lot on that, recognizing their contribution and role in building the economy of the United States. Are people really at the heart of this relationship and the contribution of Indian Americans to the U.S.?
I think yes, in more ways than one. I think people-to-people ties have animated this relationship. From the Indian side, you have the Indian middle class that almost have one member or more members either in the US or aspiring to be in the US. Education has played such an important role in making this aspirational India possible. And I think the connect that you have with America is at a very basic level, where two societies which are relatively similar, very diverse, very cacophonous, very argumentative. Politically very rambunctious. So I think a lot of that is reflected in the way we relate to each other. And I think a lot of what he was trying to say today about diversity, about India's ability to become an important player globally, despite the challenges of being a democracy, which I think again was an important footnote here, was a reference to China. Where he was trying to articulate that free India being an important player in that sense. I think those are important markers, and their people-to-people ties have been very, very important. And of course, as you point out, Indian Americans have been a very, very important player, growing up in power, in political power. For a long time, Indian Americans were reluctant to use their power politically. Now they are more ambitious. Now they are more open about it. And ever since the Indo-US nuclear deal, when it became possible for them to influence the process of what was happening in the US Congress, I think there is a realization that Indian Americans can play a very important role, not only in the American economy, but also in bringing the two countries together. And I think that is a sense that perhaps pervaded. Or that pushed Mr. Modi to do that Howdy Modi rally, where he could showcase how important Indian Americans are, not only to people back home, but also to Mr. Trump, who was there and who was impressed by what was happening in front of his eyes. So I think clearly there is a realization there that these countries, India's soft power remains a very important benchmark insofar as taking the ties forward is concerned. And clearly the role of Indian diaspora, Indian Americans in American politics is growing. Their role in the way American economy has shaped up over the last 2 decades. After all, Silicon Valley would not have been possible without the contribution of Indian Americans.
If I may just pitch in there, we just saw Ivanka Trump, the other advisors and the other cabinet secretaries also posing for photographs there. So it's a moment to behold in every sense for POTUS, for floaters, for the two advisors who are also family members, and of course for other cabinet secretaries as well. Please continue.
So I mean, the role of Indian Americans is becoming more prominent, and I think it will continue to be more prominent, and that is one of the reasons why perhaps Mr. Trump is here, because a lot of the Indian Americans are not traditionally Republican voters. So if he can expand his voting base by incorporating some of that, some of the Indian Americans into his political map, then I think it helps him. So clearly, I think Indian Americans have become politically potent, and that's a leverage that, to a certain extent, both countries have used vis-a-vis each other.
Ambassador Balakrishnan, if I can dwell a bit on the point Professor Pant mentioned about the uniqueness of the India-US ties lies in the fact that it is not only a top-down approach in diplomacy, but also a groundful of support at the people-to-people level, which augurs well for the bilateral ties. So in that context, how do you look at or read or view the relationship between the two leaders in question, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi? How does that augur? Does that augur well for the bilateral ties, and where does the relationship go from here under these two leaders, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi?
No, over the decades, the relationship between India and the US, both being democracies, is bound to have a large people-to-people contact.
Right.
Unlike relationships involving an authoritarian regime. So it has survived changes of government on both sides. there is broad-based support for closer Indo-US relations across the political spectrum in both countries. There are nuances, of course. The present government has been particularly active in reaching out to the diaspora through events which is really unprecedented before. Right. And this has really had an echo among the diaspora. And I think that was visible in Houston when President Trump saw the kind of crowd and the kind of response Prime Minister Modi got. And by now, most American politicians, even at lower levels, have realized that there are Indian voters and there are Indian contributors to campaigns who could be useful. And I think the Trump visit here shows that, when it's shown back in the US, this is one of the main things which is reported in the US media, that Trump is being welcomed very popularly by the Indian community, by the Indian population.
And we've
so
just
now Trump
come
has
to know
just emerged from the shadow of the impeachment, and he is in a confident mode. He's looking, and I think most political pundits give him a better than even chance of winning the next election.
Yes.
So if that happens, he will be around till 2024. Prime Minister Modi is equally has a solid parliamentary majority till 2024. So both leaders meeting at this time, I think it's a great driver of the relationship.
Oh, absolutely. And we've just come to know that US President Donald Trump's message in the visitor's book at the Taj Mahal was that Taj Mahal inspires awe, a timeless testament to the rich and diverse beauty of Indian culture. Thank you, India. These are words written by US President Donald Trump in the visitor's book at the Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal inspires awe, a timeless testament to the rich and diverse beauty of Indian culture. Thank you, India. Well, Dr. Pant, we've heard in the past Donald Trump speaking about how Indian culture is something that is nearly unparalleled, and he's spoken about how he respects Indian culture. What is the kind of bond that Indian culture is forming between the two countries and in taking this relationship forward?
In some ways, it has been, an extension of India's people-to-people ties. As they have grown, so has this appreciation of India's soft power in America, India's ability to shape, public opinion by other means. You have had Mr. Trump himself mentioned Bollywood. He mentioned Indian food, Indian students. The fact of India being a great civilizational state with its own history and culture. I think all those factors have increasingly become more prominent in the American political discourse because of the way in which the Indian American community has shaped the American political landscape, and I think it's only likely to get even more dense in the coming years ahead. And I think that was being reflected in what he was referring to. That here is India with such huge degree of diversity, with such potent soft power in terms of its cultural values, cultural heritage, which has managed to at one point the same factors that at one point were being criticized for hampering India's growth, today are looked as India's assets. Indeed. So clearly there is a sense in which India's rise itself is generating this appreciation of Indian values, Indian culture, that it is not about making India a poor country or a developing country, but these factors have allowed India to transcend some of the problems that perhaps are encountered by a developing country. So again and again he was mentioning this fact, partly I think also as a rebuke to certain other countries that have placed a great degree of value on homogenization. Exactly. And so I think that emphasis is very important when you look at two alternative models being developed, being talked about in the world, where China's model is seemingly becoming more important.
In fact, if I can just amplify your point, Professor Pant, and I'm paraphrasing President Trump here, he said in Motera this afternoon, he contrasted India's growth vis-a-vis, without naming China, he spoke about China, and he says India has grown. India's growth India has done it as a peaceful, democratic country, unlike some other countries which use coercion, intimidation, or aggression to grow themselves. And he says India-US ties are a natural, enduring friendship. And he marveled at India's diversity, saying that India remains strong as one Indian nation, and it is an inspiration to the world. So clearly, India's soft power coming into sharp focus in President Trump's remarks there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is something that we have seen getting, there was a time when all of these factors were brushed aside as less important. But about what we have seen in the last few decades, especially in the last few years, is that a greater degree of appreciation has creeped into the American political system. And of course, you had, whether it was George W. Bush, whether it was Barack Obama, and now Mr. Trump himself, all of them articulating that, look, India is important, yes, because it's growing, it can be potential counterweight to China, but also in normative ways India can be a counterweight. It is not simply that as a hard power country India can be a counterweight, but also as a normative power India is something that many in America would aspire for. A lot of the values are very similar.
Indeed.
Yeah, actually, if I may just put in here, it's also that India on its own represents a huge economic market and a country with doing business with which can generate jobs and business in the US. So apart from, of course, the thing with China and the alternative model and things like IPR, respect for IPR, and non-coercive attribute, India by itself represents a huge business and market opportunity for the US.
Right.
And since we are also, in a way, in the thick, to begin with, of the US presidential polls process, what's the kind of impact that the Indian-American bloc, voting bloc, has on the US presidential elections? Because many of them are in states that traditionally have voted for Democrats, except maybe Michigan and Wisconsin, which are battleground states where we see, the votes being, in a sense, up for grabs. So would you say that President Trump would have Michigan and Wisconsin particularly in the back of his mind while in India?
I think a bit, and I would say that, look, he's trying very hard to expand his voter base. And one of the things about Mr. Trump has been that while his core base has remained very, very loyal to him, he has been unable to expand his base. So whatever polls we are looking at today, we see a diversification of support amongst various Democratic contenders, whereas a consolidation of his vote base around Mr. Trump. But what he has been unable to do in the last 4 years is to reach out to other constituencies that have not voted either Republican or for Mr. Trump. And there he sees an opportunity, perhaps in Indian American community, which has traditionally voted Democrats for the Democratic Party in the last few elections, where he perhaps may give them a chance to rethink their assumptions about the role that Republicans and Mr. Trump can play in this relationship. So what has happened since Howdy Modi is a certain reorientation that, Houstan, Mr. Modi could come there, project the sense of his power over the Indian diaspora, and also induce a sense of awe in Mr. Trump, perhaps, that, look, he has this control, then perhaps if I go back to India and if I showcase my love for India, then perhaps I will also get some of that rubbed off on me. And maybe he's, that perhaps is one of the big reasons why he's traveling to India, because, look, we all know he has a very transactionalist approach to politics. It is also very likely that we are not going to have a trade deal. So, in a sense, to show off or to showcase his visit, there are limits to what he can demonstrate. So clearly, in terms of the politics and in terms of the political nature of this visit, that it's an important consideration, and one should not fault him for that. And I think it's an important thing that Mr. Modi himself exemplified when he went to Houston, his hold over the Indian Americans, and perhaps that is something that brings him here at a very difficult time, because electorally this is a very tight calendar for him.
Right.
But he decided to come here during the thick of elections, and he's investing 2 days here, and he'll go back and perhaps show that he has been able to demonstrate American commitment to India's rise, in American commitment to a strong friendship, and that perhaps will endear him to a certain constituency that has not voted for Republicans.
Absolutely. Ambassador,
I might add that I see that in the light of recent events, which I wouldn't like to comment too much on, I see the distinct possibility of a shift of the Indian American vote away from the Democratic Party to the Republicans, particularly in the lower income groups and the ones who are not in the more liberal states like New York or California, but elsewhere. And this is coming across even in conversations with Indian Americans.
But on this point, on the point that Professor Pant was making, Ambassador, Would you say that this 36-hour standalone visit to India by President Trump is an endorsement, validation that India has actually come into its own on the world stage? India is a power of consequential power in the region and beyond, and therefore countries around the world must sit up and take notice of India's resurgence and India's growth and India's contribution to have a new world order, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it is, and this has been acknowledged by many other countries, like the French, for example. India is an economic, you cannot ignore India as far as the economic clout is concerned, its influence on climate change, on global issues. So all countries, including our neighbors, the Chinese, know that. And for Trump, this is a continuation of what the Americans have been seeking for quite a long time. A closer partnership for India for their own reasons, business, economic, strategic. But the remarkable feature of this visit is, I think this is seen by the Trump and his supporters as a way of delivering the Indian-American vote. And let's see if the opinion polls bear that out.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Harsh Pant, what we know for sure is that $3 billion worth of defense deals are going to be signed tomorrow, because that's the announcement that Donald Trump made from the Motera Stadium. What does growing defense relationship, if you see the graph right from Bill Clinton to, in fact, from George Bush to Barack Obama and now to Donald Trump, what does that indicate? Because we are seeing a lot happening on the defense front.
I think defense is becoming now the driver of this relationship for various reasons, and I think it exemplifies that trust between the two countries is growing at an unprecedented rate. One of the problems we have had in the past, and it still continues to have to a certain extent, is that many in India question whether America can be trusted. This is a big question we always ask. How far can we trust America? If we ever fight with some of our adversaries in the neighborhood, would America come to our defense? And clearly, as we are moving forward, we are looking at that debate through a different lens.
So why don't you answer the question? So why don't you ask the question, why don't you answer that question yourself about America coming to a country's help or rescue? What's your reading?
Well, my sense is that...
Are you suggesting that there are limits to strategic congruence? Is that what you're aiming at?
See, at the moment there are certain limits to that congruence.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to articulate is that we have moved from a position where this was a zero-sum competition to a point where convergence is increasing. Sure. So while we may not agree 100% with each other on every single strategic matter, especially when it pertains to countries like Pakistan and China, we are entering into a phase where Americans would sign a deal with the Taliban later this week, and we have divergences there. So, but the fact is that Trump administration, when it started off with an unprecedented scrutiny of Pakistani actions.
Yes.
So we have traversed a long distance where you needed to convince Americans, and every time an American president would visit, the big debate in Indian media would be whether he would go to Pakistan.
Hyphenate.
Hyphenation was the big thing. Americans should not go to Pakistan, and a lot of energy was expended on it. Today, I think that's out of the question. American presidents come to India on their own, standalone visits. They come to India and stray mention here and there of Pakistan, but Pakistan is a footnote in the relationship. So we have moved on from a period where Pakistan was the prism through which this relationship was being viewed to a situation where, again, defense deals are being signed with a larger Indo-Pacific in mind, where you have a broader strategic congruence. There are problems there also, but I think the larger strategic vision is very similar. And we both want stability in the Indo-Pacific. We both want a certain, that one single hegemonistic power should not control the region. And therefore, our defense engagement is growing. Therefore, our questions on that we took a decade to assess foundational agreements, two of them we have signed in the last 3 years.
Right.
So clearly there is a push and momentum to that relationship, which is quite unprecedented.
And talking about the Indo-Pacific ambassador, Foreign Minister Jaishankar has said in the past that the Indo-Pacific strategy is not against someone, but it's for something. Now, India and the US agree that they are